Sound can do more than entertain. It can heal, it can connect, and elevate experiences to an entirely new level. But how can sound healing actually transform modern events? And what does it take to turn passion for healing into a thriving business? Today, we are joined by a leader in the sound healing space who's doing just that. So get ready to discover the impact of sound from immersive experiences to entrepreneurial empowerment.
Welcome to the Events Demystified Podcast, where we demystify the world of in-person, virtual, and hybrid events, AV production, and AI technology by sharing practical tips, tricks, and strategies to help your events succeed. This podcast is brought to you by Treefan Events, a woman-owned boutique event production agency that caters to event professionals, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. We specialize in AV and AI education, integration, automation, and implementation, all based on our Fit for Events frameworks, which focuses on futuristic AV production, innovative AI technology, driving audiences, and empowering behind-the-scenes teams. And I'm your host, Anka Platon Treefan, with over 2 decades of hands-on experience in event production, event management, and now AI technologies and cybersecurity.
Welcome back to another episode of the Events Demystified Podcast, your go-to show for insights on event production, tech, wellness, and leadership. I'm your host, Anka Platon Treefan, and my internet is struggling today, so you get to see me all choppy and nice, but hopefully the sound will travel, because today it's all about sound. So we're gonna ride that train, and we're going to find out how is sound used as a healing modality. And for that, I am going to dive into the power of sound with a very special guest, Mike Reed. He's the founder of SoundQuest and SoundQuest Academy, where he merges his expertise as a musician, sound healing practitioner, and business mentor. With years of experience leading transformative sound healing sessions, Mike has impacted thousands of participants globally. Through his academy, he empowers aspiring and established sound healers to build successful businesses by combining sound healing techniques with entrepreneurial strategies. Mike's work is rooted in the fusion of his musical background, a shamanic training, and passion for personal development. And with that, let's welcome our guest in. Mike, welcome to the show. How do you say that? Shamanic? Shamanic. What am I saying?
Yeah, shamanism, shamanic. Yeah.
Okay, good. Glad. I'm sure you're just having your greatest time just see me struggle. I'm so glad that you're here. So welcome. And before we dive actually into the whole shamanic training and the business of sound healing and event integration side of sound healing, I want to start on a fun note. And you've told me that you've led hundreds of healing sessions for thousands of people. If you could create a soundtrack or a soundscape that represents your life journey so far, what would it sound like? Or maybe what instruments would take the lead?
Oh, wow. Interesting question. Yeah, that's a question that I would have to probably think about for a while. I mean, whole lifetime of a soundtrack of my life would have multiple different genres in the same song, probably.
Okay, all right. Any particular instrument?
I don't know. I mean, I would have to say, if I had to choose one instrument, acoustic guitar.
Okay, all right. Very shooting. Love it. All right. Well, we're going to go with that. If you can think of any other instrument that comes to mind, let me know. I was going to say, in the age of AI, I'm sure you can easily go to Suno or Udio and generate this prompt that would captivate.
Wild. I wonder where the music industry is going to be in 10 years from now.
Right.
If you can literally type in any genre and lyrics you want, or any kind of topic about a song, and it'll, within a minute, it'll give you a real song that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're not like a very high-end music connoisseur that is okay with whatever an output is, and those outputs are getting better and better, right? You'd be like, oh, this is great for average, for whatever I need. This is great, right? So you're right. Like there's definitely that part of copyright and also fear of what does this will look like for the creative. I don't know if I got to tell you in our prior conversation where we were getting to know each other, my husband is a music composer. So he's actually written every single jingle, bumper, and I've gone over the years for the podcast with through different versions of the same soundtrack, only in a different theme. So if I wanted to make it more rock ballad or more, I don't know, electronic or more rock or whatever, he would just change the melody and the instrument and the progression of the notes to fulfill that job. But the theme of the podcast will stay the same, right? So I haven't yet tried to see if I can recreate something like that with AI, to be honest. I'm afraid.
Sounds pretty fascinating, though.
Exactly. But let's get to our sound healing and the role of sound in events and how sound could be integrated into our current events, our modern events, to create deeper connections and transformative experiences. How do you see that happening? Or what were some of the elements in which you saw that happening really well executed?
Right. So maybe we should touch on first what sound healing is for those people that are listening that never
Yeah, definitely.
experienced
Let's
anything
bring
about
them
it.
to this place of understanding of what that even is. I feel like I've been through quite a few sound baths myself, and like everybody knows, like, but you're right, not everybody knows.
Yeah, it's still being discovered. And it's also one of the most popular emerging holistic wellness modality in the world right now. Well, I've been blown away in the last 10 years almost doing these sessions with how many people show up. These rooms are full all the time, sold out. And I transitioned recently, or not transitioned, but pivoted a little bit from doing my own events that were just all about sound healing and what you would call a sound bath, to being requested to be part of corporate wellness events. I've been invited all kinds of executive leadership retreats, wellness retreats, bespoke experiences. And so now I'm just getting all of these invitations to join other people's events. And it's fascinating to see the kind of explosion that's happening right now of the awareness of sound healing and sound baths. So basically, I'll explain it kind of in a scientific way so people can understand.
You're like in a scientific way so people understand. Let's dumb it down first.
Yeah, I'll dumb it down.
NLP, natural language kind of way, and then we
Sure.
can go to the scientific.
Well, I was also, you could interpret it from sort of a more, also a metaphysical type of,
Got it.
but most people, to just give their minds like an idea of like what's happening in the physical body and the brain during a session, it's pretty easy to explain. So what's happening with these instruments like gongs, for example, gongs emanate the full spectrum of sound. So the human hearing range is usually about 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. That's what we can perceive with our hearing. So that hertz is the cycles of sound waves per second, right? So when the full spectrum of sound is coming in all at the same time, so the part of your brain that's hearing me speak right now, that's interpreting my words and making sense of things, that's your executive functioning. That's your prefrontal cortex that's receiving this information and processing and it, making sense of it. But when the full spectrum of sound is being perceived, all the frequencies, vibrations, overtones are coming in all at once, it confuses that part of the mind. The mind is trying to grasp onto what it's hearing, but it can't figure out the full spectrum of sound. And so it removes the encumbrance of the thinking mind, right? And it also entrains the brain waves. So you start to go from our waking consciousness, what's called the beta brainwave. So like when you're alert, you're task oriented, you're problem solving, that part of the brain, the beta brainwave, when you're alert and awake and task orientated. And then when the brainwaves get entrained, they start to slow down, and you go to the alpha brainwave, the theta brainwave, and the delta brainwave. So you're in this sort of between meditation and sleeping. And so it's almost like a involuntary state of meditation, or even it can put people to sleep. And I know that all the time, because at my events, there's always someone that falls asleep, and I can sometimes hear them snoring, right? So I have a protocol in place before we start the session. Like, if the person next to you starts to snore, we all have permission to gently nudge that person so it doesn't disturb the experience, because it happens like pretty much every time. So you're involuntarily descending into these altered brainwave states. So when you're in meditation or sleeping, your nervous system goes from what's called the sympathetic nervous system over to the parasympathetic nervous system, deep rest. And you click over into this deep sort of non-thinking, restful state, accessing different parts of the mind, and your body returns itself to homeostasis, self-healing. And you come out of this experience feeling rested, restored, renewed, peaceful, balanced, and people love it. It's the first thing I've ever done for work in my life where people are lining up to thank me afterwards. It's amazing to see how people are glowing afterwards, and they come up and talk about their experience. Maybe they had some visuals, they had some profound deep rest that they haven't been able to in a long time. And yeah, it's fascinating to see the results. And so that's how sound healing works. Now, if people want to bring this experience into an event, like, for example, last week, I was invited to this executive corporate retreat. Like, it was like a leadership retreat. And they started the retreat with my sound bath. That was the first activity of this multi-day experience. And it was an amazing way to drop people in. These are high functioning, high performing people. They got very busy lives. They got a lot of responsibility. And what the organizer of the event was trying to achieve was to drop people more into their body and less their minds, because they're coming into this experience with all kinds of thoughts and all kinds of people that they're managing, and emails to respond to, or communications that are going on, and things in their companies that might be on fire or something, who knows, right? And so it was a way to settle their nervous system into the experience and launch them into this multi-day retreat with more peace and clarity, calm. And so they were able to go from that place and be more heart-centered and really absorb the rest of the experience of the retreat. I've also done sound healing sessions at the end of events where there's speakers on the stage. There's a lot of process work. Think like Tony Robbins, or there's events where people are like doing a lot of inner work, right? And workshop-y kind of activities and that sort of thing. And so they're kind of overloaded with stimuli, and they've done a lot of work on themselves and rewired some neural pathways and that sort of thing, and been learning so much information has been coming in. So at the end of these events, it's really great to have a sound bath experience where people can lie down and receive integration. Really, it's a great integration tool after a lot of information has been downloaded and transmitted into the mind, right? And then you just lie down and receive and recalibrate. And yeah, it was an amazing way to allow people to integrate everything that they've learned over. In that case, it was like a multi-day event. And it was funny because everyone was in chairs watching these speakers, listening, taking notes. And then the crew of the event cleared away all the chairs during a break period. And then you had, I think it was like 550 people lying down on yoga mats and that sort of thing, and receiving a sound bath in this beautiful venue. So it can be an amazing supplement and an amazing extra bonus for any type of event like this.
Absolutely. I mean, you make a great point about how important it is to give your audience the ability to not just receive the information, but also process it. And I think a lot of the times what happens at a lot of the conferences that I've been part of, I've gone to, and there's just all this super filled agenda with great sessions, great knowledge sharing, but then you do not have any time to just sit with your thoughts for a minute to really process what you learn. So then you end up leaving from that conference either super tired because your brain is like exploding, or you don't retain much. Like maybe you retain 25% of what you learn, and that can be a waste of time and resources, right? So having the ability to integrate some of that knowledge, as you said, in a way that is holistic and intentional, I think that's a beautiful shift in mindset of what could be done. And also, it's like so amazing to hear how sound can shift energy and mood in a room so effortlessly. Now, have you seen sound baths? And first, let's say, is there a difference between a sound bath and a sound healing, or is just another way to say the same thing? And then the piggyback question on that is, have you seen it done in a way that it didn't necessarily produce the same impact?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the second part of that question?
Have you seen the modality done in a way that it didn't necessarily have the same impact? Like, have you seen it done wrongly?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So sound healing and sound bath, pretty synonymous. You could say sound experience, sound journey, sound bath, sound healing. Ultimately, it means the same type of experience, right? And there's different ways to transmit the experience. There's one-on-one healing sessions where you can use different types of instruments because you're working with an individual, where you could use things like tuning forks on the body, these sort of like acutonic tuning forks that you can apply on the body, sort of like acupuncture, but with vibration. And you can actually place things like Tibetan singing bowls on different energy centers in the body if you're working one-on-one with people. But if you're working the whole group of people, you would transmit the experience in a different way that would affect a larger room at the same time, right? And yeah, there's definitely technique and like a certain level of mastery that's required when you are using these tools and these instruments, right? Like, for example, louder doesn't mean better. Louder doesn't mean it's going to be more effective. And I think I see a lot of sort of beginning sound healing practitioners think that they need to be making sound the entire session. And that's not true. Silence is actually a really key ingredient to a successful sound bath, having periods of sound and then the opposite of silence to let the vibrations settle. And yeah, sometimes you'll hear people playing these singing bowls too aggressively or the gongs too aggressively. And that might actually pull people out of the experience because it's not exactly pleasant to listen to something that's kind of shocking the nervous system. It's about having a soothing transmission of sound and vibration to allow the recipients to drop into their parasympathetic nervous system, like we spoke about. So if you're not playing these instruments the correct way, it might just stir up unpleasant emotions. It might stir up irritation and people might want to get up and leave. But if you have the techniques and transitioning from one instrument to another and the length of time you play certain instruments, all these things matter. And that's what I try to teach in my academy as best as possible for aspiring sound healers that want to learn the art and the science and the techniques of sound healing.
Absolutely. Before we get into the sound healing as a business, I'm curious, do you have any examples of an event where sound healing made such a profound impact? And what were some of the key takeaways that you could share with, say, an event professional that is thinking about it, but they haven't necessarily been sold on it?
Okay, I'm trying to scan my mind, my memory, because I've done so many events and like every time I do one, people are so grateful for it. And people love to just lie down and receive something that changes their state and calms the energy down, right? So I'm just thinking about one retreat. It was at this beautiful retreat center and people had been doing a lot of emotional intelligence inquiry. And after all of that, like I was saying earlier, that inner work and processing happens, they were able to lie down and receive this 90-minute experience that I offered. And that was the way that the 3-day event ended. And I think every single person there came up to me afterwards. And some of them were even like teary and like emotional and in gratitude. And there's so many examples of that. I can't name just one because it's almost like that, similar to that every time. So if someone is organizing an event and they're on the fence about sound healing, they don't really understand what it does, I would say find someone in your area that offers sound healing, go experience it for yourself, be on the receiving end of it, and then make a decision. And instead of judging it before you've tried it, go try it and then see if it's something that you could see happening at your event. If you're having a large event, keep in mind that if you have a good sound crew, the sound can be amplified through the sound system. And if it's 1,000 people, you can still have a profound experience as long as you have the right technology to accompany the sound healing facilitator.
Absolutely. As we think about building a business in this particular modality and niche, really, what were some of the key challenges that you had to overcome? And I'm sure you've had some challenges at first, and being at it for how many years you've been doing this for, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a musician for most of my life since I was a young boy. But sound healing, I discovered sound healing through my own seeking of healing and wellness for myself. It started with yoga and just started doing float tanks and started going to these wellness retreats. And through all that seeking, men's work, Tony Robbins, all these things that I was trying out, I discovered the power of sound and vibrational healing. And because I have a musical background, it fascinated me, right? So I went down the rabbit hole and started studying it and discovering it. And I started out by offering one-on-one sessions for free for just friends and family and acquaintances, anybody who would come. And all I was asking in return was for their feedback. And I was starting to compile data as I started to collect more and more instruments. And I started to figure out through reading books and learning about it and applying it and working with these instruments persistently, I figured out what was effective, what wasn't effective. And then when I felt ready, I went out and approached my friend who owned a yoga studio that I was actually practicing at. And I started to offer sound bath events at that yoga studio. And I felt like yoga and sound healing were a great synergy because people who do yoga already are aware of meditation, they're aware of holistic wellness in general, and they're open to an experience like a sound bath. And ultimately what is happening in a sound bath is what's called Shavasana position. So you're just lying down on your back, which is actually how a yoga class typically ends. And so people love to just lie down and be in that Shavasana pose. Right. And so it was successful right away. And these events were filling up and selling out. And so I realized there's a thing here. This could be a thing that I do. And at that point, I was having 40, 50 people show up in the room at the same time. And each person was paying, let's say, $35, $40 per person. And so from a business perspective, I was like, whoa, this could be a real thing as long as I could continue to fill these rooms on a regular basis. Because as opposed to something like a one-on-one healing modality like massage therapy or acupuncture or physiotherapy, those sorts of things, you can only work on one person at a time. But with sound and vibration, you can work on a multitude of people all at once. So if you have, let's say, 30 people paying $50 or $60 per person for an event, you can make significantly more in less time than someone that works with people one-on-one in their practice, right? So then I just started to realize that if I kind of copy and paste this model of event around the whole region where I live, and I can get myself up to 6, 7, 8, 12 events per month at different locations and start leveraging their communities and their followers to fill these rooms, I was pretty quickly within 6, 8 months, I was replacing my income at my old full-time job. And I was working in the evening. So I was able to continue working a job, but also do this on the weekends and in the evenings. And then it was within a year, I had quit that job and I was just doing this full time and haven't looked back ever since.
But the only caveat to this is you are the operator. You have to figure out a way, how do you scale this if you can be there? If something were to happen and you need to take a day off, there goes your event, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can scale it to a point with just yourself, and that's fine and everything, but ultimately it's just self-employment, right?
Right.
But in terms of scaling it, there's different models that people can do. One approach would be to create a brand, like for example, SoundQuest is my brand, and start to create these events and get booked with private events and corporations and wellness retreats and that sort of thing. And then sort of create sort of like a certification program where you kind of like certify other practitioners to be under your brand and then send for a set fee, right, to do a session. So you can pay someone a few $100s or $500 to go run a session, but you're the one booking these clients, right? So in that way, it could be more scalable.
Before we continue, I want to give a shout out to the team at TreeFan Events. We are not just an event planning and production agency. We are focused on integrating innovative AV solutions, AI strategies, and wellness-focused practices through our Fit for Events framework. Whether you're planning live, virtual, or hybrid events, the team at TreeFan Events is here to provide personalized planning, strategic design, and seamless technology management to ensure everything runs flawlessly. And now, we are offering AI-powered workshops to help you grow your business, build stronger teams, and elevate your events to the next level. If you want to learn more about how the team at TreeFan Events can help make your event unforgettable, visit treefanevents.com.
It's sustainable of a model, right? If you have someone that is not in the business operating side of things, like they just want to show up, do their thing, and then go home, versus someone that's more of an entrepreneur like yourself. Like you work the business, you're in the business, like you really see all aspects of that, and you probably thrive on those roles. What happens in the situation? You do certify people that end up stealing your business model and they start their own thing, right? There's
Yeah,
a risk of that.
definitely a risk there for sure. Anyone could probably, you're taking a risk, but that could be the case with kind of any company. I mean, someone could take the idea and run off, but we have a contract in place. Like, for example, when I send someone that's come through my academy, I can offer them opportunities. And we have a very specific contract in place, sort of like a subcontractor agreement that this is a SoundQuest client. There's no
Non-competing agreement.
non-compete and
Yeah.
there's no self-promotion or skewing away clients for your own practice and that sort of thing. So yeah, I kind of learned that the hard way early on. And so I have like preemptive measures to avoid that situation before I work with someone.
What are some of the core principles or strategies that you teach at the SoundQuest Academy that you feel like they make the biggest difference?
Yeah, what I do is I get people to set up a foundation of income first so that they can sort of adjust to like perhaps they're working in an employment situation where they have like an employee mindset. I'm trying to shift them away from employee mentality and bring them into the world of entrepreneurship. So I try to create a foundational level of income and get them there first to see like, okay, if I do this, I can actually create my own income through my own effort and activity, and I don't need to depend on an employer. And then I give them branding advice, creating their own signature style, how to find partnerships and collaborators to work with, and how to run an event start to finish, how to market your event, how to sell them out, how to fill these rooms on a regular basis. And then from there, once that foundation is set, I create or help them create multiple streams of income. Things like working with private clients, affiliate marketing, live streaming, how to monetize live streaming your sound baths worldwide, monetizing, like working with brands that you love and appreciate and becoming an ambassador of those brands. And so there's multiple streams of income. And from there, you start scaling, right? So this is the model that I teach in my course. It's called the Sound Healer Blueprint, and it's through SoundQuest Academy, and students love it. And it's a really great program because you're working with other sound healing practitioners from around the world. And it's a kind of a mastermind community of sound healers that are all supportive of each other and work together.
That's awesome. Now, your work obviously blends music. You said you come from a musical background, shamanic practices. Let's get into that a little bit. What does it actually mean? What does it look like? And then healing. And as you unpack this, I'm curious what drew you to this path and how has this personal journey that you have shared a little bit about earlier shaped your philosophy?
Yeah. So how I got into this was I was sort of like in a place of desperation, honestly. I was in a kind of a miserable place in my life. I was working at this job that where I was driving these giant trucks around in an oil mine in northern Canada, living in a camp, and I just didn't fit into that environment at all. And it was driving me crazy. Like I was like, I had to suppress my true essence every day. I'd also just gotten out of a relationship that kind of left me feeling derailed. And I was like escaping and doing unhealthy things at that time in my life. And it was kind of like a gift of desperation that I got to. It was like on my knees, like, I'm doing life wrong here and I got to figure this out. And that's what got me onto this path of like seeking healing and wellness, right? Starting with the yoga. And I remember listening to this podcast actually, and they were talking about working with psychedelics and ayahuasca, right? And shamans and the Amazon. And I was like, that's what I need to go do. And
Something super extreme because you're desperate right now.
yeah. And so I literally booked my flight down to Peru and I was like trying to find these shamans that they're talking about. And
Did you?
well, what happened was interesting. I was at this yoga studio and I saw a poster on the wall of this woman in my area. Her name's Angela Pryder, and she does great work. And she had this thing on the wall and it said that word again. I was like, there's that word again, shamanism. And she does like, she's a shamanic practitioner, right? And I called her up. I'm like, I'm going to go down to Peru and do this ayahuasca thing. Like, do you know anything about it? And then she's like, whoa, hold on. Like, maybe we should just like pump the brakes a little bit here and we should have a conversation about where you're at in your life. And then so I went and saw her and we started talking. And then I actually ended up canceling my trip to Peru and joining her shamanic apprenticeship program. So it was like a 3-year program. And so I put the ayahuasca idea on hold for about 2 years while I did some other work on myself, which was very wise because I think if someone is not ready for that experience, it might be too overwhelming to go into that altered state of consciousness before you're ready, right? So I'm really glad I did it that way, where I did a lot of work on myself first and then went and worked with the plant medicine after that. So yeah, so that shamanic apprenticeship, it was really a process of sort of like uncovering my true essence, right? Like, who am I really? Like from my quintessential core. And it was this sort of uncovering process. I would say like letting go of what I was conditioned by in the overculture of society, right? The school system, what is expected of us to be like doing all these things that were shown on TV and media and movies and all this sort of thing that conditions us. Like we don't even realize it, but we're being subconsciously programmed by what we consume with our ears and our eyes all the time. And it was sort of like this removal of all of that and uncovering like my quintessential voice and my gifts and what I was here to do. And in medicine ceremony, actually, she came and gave me an instrument to play. It was called a steel tongue drum. And I started playing it for this group and in this altered state of the plant medicine. And as I was playing it, like this fire energy came through and it was like showing me, like I was getting this very clear download, like this is what you're supposed to do. Meanwhile, I'm trying all these things. I was like a real estate agent. I was driving those trucks in the mine. I was like doing all these careers that were just like not aligned with who I was. And meanwhile, there's this undercurrent of music and my natural skills to play instruments that was there like the whole time. And I just had to kind of uncover that truth. And there I just went all in.
Isn't it interesting how it takes one of those moments of like a complete meltdown in your life to push you to a place where now you have to unearth yourself, who you really are, to find yourself. And some of those experiences, as you go through them, they're like the most painful experiences that you'll ever go through. And yet it's kind of like this image of the phoenix bird. I actually have a phoenix bird on tattoo on my back, and it came out of one of those experiences right after COVID. And I needed to redefine who I really was. And it took one of those eventful kind of like you hit the wall, everything is falling apart in all directions. And you're like, if there's another low that I could hit, I would be surprised if there was, because right now I'm the lowest low that there's been, right? And yet that's what's necessary sometimes for you to rebuild yourself, to become who you were meant to be all this time, but you're too busy like exploring all these paths that were never yours to take. So it's interesting, and yet it's a painful experience, but I feel like it's a very needed experience. In our culture and day, I think people try to stay so far away from pain and discomfort, and very few allow themselves to go through something like that at that level, to be able to then come out of that reborn.
100%. Yeah. Like I said earlier, it's like this gift of desperation where it's like you're just on your knees in life and all these mistakes have happened and all these painful things have happened. And you're kind of bewildered. You're in this bewilderment of like, what is life? Like, why is it so hard?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, when you get the humility. And once you get that humility of like, what was my role in all this? And you start to realize like you kind of created all this in a way and take responsibility for what's happening. It's empowering. It's actually very empowering to get to that place of humility and start to make different decisions, different choices with more clarity.
Absolutely. That personal evolution that can really inform then how you show up for others and for yourself. So let's talk about what inspires you today. What continues to inspire you in the sound healing space? And what do you see as the future of this work, especially in the context of wellness and events?
Yeah, I think what inspires me is I continue to see all these people show up and come and experience what I offer. And as long as people keep showing up and want to receive what I'm doing, then I'm happy to keep showing up. I'm happy to keep meeting them and seeing where this journey goes. I think what's fascinating about all this is like I followed that instinct from that moment in the medicine ceremony today has taken me on this pretty wild adventure, right? In terms of like meeting people and other opportunities, and all these portals have opened up. And I feel like I have like an entirely different life, like a different social sphere, a different reality, right? And it just feels aligned. It's like the concept of ikigai. It's like something that I enjoy, something that I'm good at, something that the world needs, and something that I can be paid for. And so that just feels like I'm in this flow, and it feels sometimes like I'm actually not really working. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't feel like work. It continues to unfold. I'm compelled to do it. I'm not like begrudgingly doing anything anymore.
I can tell that it comes out of passion, and you're right. Like if you do something that you love, you're never gonna feel like you work one day in your life. And don't we all want that, right? But for someone that's listening today that's curious maybe about sound healing, but doesn't know where to start, what's one small step that they can take to explore this practice, maybe bring it into their event or business, depending on if they want to become a practitioner or not? What would you tell them?
Go to soundquestacademy.com.
Yes. Take the course.
It's brilliant. It's a great starting place, honestly. It's like have an intro to sound healing program. If people are just curious, they want to dip their toes in a little bit, see if it's something that they want to explore, I have that available. And if you're already doing it, I have the Sound Healer Blueprint course. And then I have a longer, more in-depth program called the Sound Healer Mastermind Program. Or you can go to my YouTube channel, Sound Quest Academy YouTube, and watch all the tutorials that I have on all these different instruments. And you can also see some videos on there about what a live sound bath experience for a larger event will look like. I have a whole event experience that was professionally recorded, and it's up on there, and you can sort of see what I do. And you can also, on the YouTube channel, receive a sound bath. I have a virtual sound bath professionally recorded, where you can put on headphones and lie down and just receive the 50-minute sound healing sound bath.
Would you say that doing that virtually is just as effective if you were to do it in person?
Definitely not, but it's the next best thing for sure. I mean, the in-person experience, you kind of feel
The vibrations, right? It's like a physical vibration.
Body. You're not just perceiving it with your ears, but you're receiving it with all your cells, and all the atoms and molecules are moving around, and it's way different in person, but you can still get the effects of it if you just lie down in a comfortable position and listen to it virtually as well.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, thank you so much for this powerful and inspiring conversation. I suppose for anyone that would like to connect with you, that would be SoundQuest Academy, or do you have any other place that you like to have them connect with you?
Yeah. So soundquestacademy.com if you're interested in becoming a sound healing practitioner. But if you want to just follow me on social media, go to Instagram at SoundQuest. You'll see my blue logo. And also I have another Instagram, which is SoundQuest Academy on Instagram and Facebook.
I love it. Well, there was a lot of information, and I feel like it's a very timely information, especially in this race that we're all in. I think everybody, especially with AI and technology and adoption and implementation, we are all trying to find ways to do more with less, but somehow we end up just doing more and more and more. And at one point, you're like kind of overriding all your systems. And this is where you need to pause. This is where you need to have a time where you either go to an event, go to a retreat, or find a way in which you decompress from all this pressure. I know I feel it sometimes more present than other times, but it's there. So having the ability to tune into something as sound healing and heal your overly capped neural system, I think it's such an important part of our wellness, of our well-being. So thank you for opening our eyes to what sound healing is and could do for us and for events and our audiences. And with that, any last words?
Yeah, like you touched on, it's important to have a practice where when we're so busy and we're doing and doing and doing, having a practice where it's kind of the opposite, where you have a moment of pause, whether that's doing a yoga class, having a meditation practice, attending a sound bath, right? It gives you that moment of pause so that you can settle the waters of the mind and create that space within yourself so that you're more creative in your life and less reactive, because we can get into too much reactivity to external stimuli. But when you create that space and you have a clearer mind, you're less reactive, more creative. And like I always like to say, the roots become the fruits. Your inner world is reflected in your outer world. So take care of that inner garden.
I love that. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Events Demystified podcast. If you found value in today's conversation, please subscribe, share with your community, and leave us a review. And until next time, well, stay grounded, stay curious, and don't underestimate the power of sound. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with other professionals like yourself. If you're interested in learning more about TreeFan events, including our future AI education talks and workshops, or to see how we can support your next event, book a free 20-minute consultation through the link in the episode notes. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and social media for updates on future episodes, industry insights, AI news and tips, and more. And if you have any topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out.